All right, if you are watching this, you are doing the research review for the POP essay. You want to walk through what that means for your work in the next couple of weeks and what it means for the final product. So you can see up on my computer, I've got the POP essay guidelines. It's in the POP folder in weekly lessons on Blackboard. I suggest having it out while we go through this. I'm going to go through the sections. I'm just going to talk you through what you need to do and what it should look like. So there's really three sections, if you will, three pieces to the research review. That doesn't necessarily mean there's three paragraphs. Obviously, there's going to be a lot more. But these are the three areas you're going to sort of center your paper on. There's going to be sort of an introduction framing piece. There's going to be the bulk of the work, which is going to be reviewing the research. And then there's going to be sort of the so what next steps piece as well. I'm going to talk a bit about the intro first and what the research says, and then the implications will come next. But while we're doing this, I also want you to be thinking about, well, what do I need to be doing the next several weeks? And I'll talk about that in a bit. But I'm going to show you some examples of research reviews. They're both in the, if you go into the folder for the POP, you'll find them in the sample articles folder. One is a piece around discussion by an author named Martin Nystrand. And I wanted to show you this, and as well as another piece we're going to look at by Elizabeth Moji. Hold on one second. Who we read a bunch of times. And this is a piece around looking at what the research says about socially just subject matter instruction. So she's going to talk about that, a concept of disciplinary literacy that you're going to read about or have read about. So here we have two examples of literacy topics in which a review of the literature is going to take place. Right, and if you look at both and the introductions, one of the first things that these authors do is they sort of set a context. They say, why are we even talking about this? What's important about this topic? And then they're going to do something like here, what Nystrand does, is they're going to set out what their goal is, right? And they're going to set out a reason for trying to do that. And you can see Moji is going to do the same exact thing, right? Where is that here? She's going to talk a bit about what her goals are for the review. What is she doing, right? And then the thing that they're going to do after that in the introduction, before they get into the research, but this may include the research, is to actually define what it is that they're talking about. So you can see here in Moji, we've got this thing that says definitions and delimiters. So you may need to find yourself saying, I want to talk more about what I mean by critical literacy, for instance, or what you mean by common assessments, right? So you can start by laying out what those pieces are. And that's really your introduction. Your introduction is to explain what the problem is, why it's important, and then you can segue into, these are the things that I need to define walking in. So, but the bulk of the work that you're going to do, and this is where there's going to be some change and some building on what you did for the initial lit review, is on focusing on what the research says. And what I'm asking you to do is to name 2 to 4 key findings and describe the research supporting each. So in this case, I don't want you to just group by general topic. I want you to actually sort of organize the literature around sort of a major idea. Okay, so that way we're moving a little bit from just simply having these general groupings to you taking a stance saying, I think this is what's really important about the research. And I want to show you just a couple examples of what that looks like. So in this Moji piece, one of the things she's going to do is she's going to define what disciplinary literacy teaching is. She's going to come up with some definitions of it, right, and what she thinks is important. So here you see an example of disciplinary literacy pedagogy as navigation across cultural boundaries. So she has this header and says, this is what I think disciplinary literacy is, and she's going to, or what's important about it. And she's going to organize, she's going to organize her research around that. So if you look at this, you can see in here she's got a number of sources she's citing while she defines what this piece is. And you can see she's quoting a bunch of things. She's moving between different definitions, and she's expanding on what she's read. So you can see here's a good example of, she's actually going to quote her own piece, where she's going to define some work that was done in other areas that are going to get at this idea of teaching students not only the privileged discourses, right? So she's got a nice topic sentence and says, this is an important idea, and then describes it, right? And so we see that in Nystrand 2 as well, right? So here we say, you scroll down here, it says, social interaction and reading, small group work, and whole class discussion. So he's going to organize around saying that small group work and whole class discussion are critical components of understanding what's effective in discussion-based literature approaches, right? And so you can see here, you've got all of these descriptions, you've got some different examples of literature cited here, and he's sort of pulling out the main ideas. So again, really what I'm asking you to do is, what are some like key pieces of what you found that actually answer your POP, right? And I think for some of you, at least one or two of those is going to be around some sort of instructional practice that's going to help you move forward, right? It might be a set of criteria to use for further direction. It might be on challenges faced. So like, again, getting around, like, think about it as like a topic sentence that you want to organize a set of paragraphs around. So you want to name 2 to 4 of those, and you want to do that as soon as possible, because what you're really going to want to do is go do more research on that piece, right? So if you're looking at what makes a effective common assessment, right, and one of the things you've decided is that the assessment needs to have like multiple features, right? It needs to have a performance task. It needs to have varying types of items. You're going to want to go look for either, say, like case studies or examples. You're going to want to look for other guidance around how to make an effective reading assessment. So you're going to really want to do more focused research on that. And don't forget that in this final, you're expected to have more sources. I believe, hold on, I got to just double check. The expectation is that you're going to have somewhere between 7 and 9 at minimum. So finally, the implication section is, there's 2 pieces again I'm going to want you to think about. Is one is the so what piece, like what's critical here, like what is really essential, important, is vital, and then there's going to be what are your next steps, right? And what I'm going to want you to do here is also make connections between an observation. You can use the cognitive or the sociocultural lens observations that you have done. You can draw upon other observations. Some of you even talked about doing a little data collection. But I want you to sort of make sense of what you're seeing. What's the connection between research and practice? And then where do you go with what you've found? And you can see that in some of the research we've seen here. One is here, in this case, the author is talking about where the research should go next, right? And as well as talking a bit about here, about ways in which the research might be taken up in classrooms. And you can see too in Moji, I gotta make sure I get this right, is she's also gonna raise some questions about where to go with the literature. So that's what I want you to do in each of these sections. And so when you're thinking about moving forward, where to begin is, you should think about this from an iterative perspective. I want you to continue to do research and continue to find sources, but I also want you to start laying out, what do you think are the 2 to 4 key ideas from your literature review? Like, so what you've done so far, what pops out to you based on what you've known, and try to name those as topic sentence, right? So instead of say, like, a critical piece around critical literacy teaching is X, right? And then sort of group your literature, your research around that, and then, you know, do some more searches to do so. I think after you do that, the next thing you want to do is, now that you've got those things laid out and you've got some research organized, you're going to want to sort of name, how do you want to frame the problem, right? That's your introduction. What things do you have to define ahead of time? And then I would put those 2 things together, and then once you've done that, then I would work on the implication section about what's important here, and then how do you move forward with it. Don't hesitate to reach out to me if you have any questions, and look forward to seeing your work.